Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by learning to develop yourself, your skills, your network, and more. I'm Brian, your host. Today on the Develop Yourself podcast, I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different than usual. Usually I talk about software, startups, learning to code, but today I want to dive into something we don't talk about nearly enough: email. Not your Gmail kind of email. I'm talking about how companies actually use email to drive millions in revenue and what developers, founders, and even marketers might be able to learn from that. And to do that, I've got three incredible guests joining me. Mike, who's the founder and CEO of Seventh Sense, an email performance management system that uses data and AI to figure out the perfect time to send email, and he helps companies like HubSpot and Educative boost their engagement and sales. I got Boris, Senior Digital Marketing Manager at Educative.io, one of the biggest online learning platforms, and one of my personal favorite ones, and he didn't just pay me to say that. It has like 3 million users. Boris runs their email marketing, affiliate programs, and their AI-powered recommendation systems that help developers keep learning. And last but not least, we have Doug, who's CEO at Optimize 3.0, a HubSpot Diamond Partner agency that helps small and mid-sized businesses unlock revenue with smart sales and marketing automation. It's a lot of people. I'm way outnumbered. Now, you might be wondering, what do these three guys have in common, and why are they on a tech show with me? And I think that whether you're a developer and you want to build a SaaS product, you're an entrepreneur, and you're trying to figure out how to make marketing and email work, I think you're going to find this conversation useful. We're going to cover how AI is reshaping email, what makes for truly effective outreach, and what it takes to build a product that sells and not just one that works. Mike, Doug, Boris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Excited to jump in when...
Me too, man, because if you're listening to this show, you've probably got an email from me at some point. I do some email marketing, but I know a lot of people out there are like, just what is email marketing? Mike, do you want to just tell us, like, just in a brief, what is email marketing?
It's a way to influence people that are in your database, build stronger relationships, educate people. It's the one marketing channel that every organization owns. It's the house you own versus the house you rent, which social networking, et cetera, you don't control the algorithms, who sees what, when do they see it, how often do they see it. With the power of emails, that you own that capability.
Yeah, I really like the way you talk about emails. Sometimes you say that you help earn attention, and email right now is probably the most reliable marketing channel to do that. So I would describe it as gaining or earning customers' attention.
Sorry for the long pause. But Doug, yeah, you want to, I don't know if you have anything to add to.
Well, yeah, email is misunderstood in this day and age in some respects. I like how Mike has described it as a channel you own. I'd qualify that a little bit because you have to earn or find the people to put in your database. And you have to be very conscious about what you email them, because you can lose their attention fairly quickly. It's very much of a nurture of that database, and making sure that you're engaging with people and you're not ending up sending the wrong message, which could end up hurting your reputation and other things that can happen to you if you abuse that channel.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I do a lot of email marketing. People that sign up for the newsletter, a lot of the sales and people that have come through Parsity have come directly through email. And when I speak to a lot of people, and like, oh, I want to do a business or something, one of the first things I tell them, which is often kind of counterintuitive to what they think, because they see social media and they think, I just need to get a big social media following. And I'm like, if I was going to start over again, I'd probably focus even more on getting a large email list. Because like you've all just said, it's like the one channel you actually own. Before we get into that, Mike, I want to know what led to building a company around sending basically better timed emails. Can you kind of give us a brief synopsis of what is Seventh Sense and what led you to building this company?
Yeah, absolutely. And first and foremost, I want to say, Brian, thanks for having us on. I'm glad I found your podcast because I've actually become fascinated with it. So
I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Awesome job there. So it was really around scratching my own itch. I started my career as a software developer in the biotech world, where we mapped the human genome. And then I made the jump to the dark side of sales. And it was specifically technology sales and selling high dollar ticket items, anywhere from $100,000 to multi-million-dollar opportunities, long sales cycles, complex technology. And one of the things that I just started recognizing was reaching people is just getting really, really, really hard. It's the executives and decision makers. And some of these decision makers that I had been working with for years, like a few of them had actually been to my wedding. And that's how close we worked together, how close friends we became. And at times I would call them and I'd be like, or they would call me and they're like, Mike, this project's getting delayed. And I'm like, that isn't my fault. What do you mean? Like, I've reached out to you, I've called you, I've emailed you. I get hundreds of emails a day. I get dozens of phone calls, dozens of voicemails a day, dozens of text messages a day. I had one executive who I was very good friends with when we were thinking about starting the company. He said to me, Mike, if you send me an email after 9 a.m, I will never, ever see it. And I said, well, how can that be? And he said, because I go to meetings starting at 9. I come back to my desk around 6:30 at night. I go to the bottom and I hit shift delete. And I was like, well, that's pretty convenient. And he would tell me, well, if it's important enough, you'll email me tomorrow. And I'm like, well, as a salesperson, I simply can't do that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of good salespeople do this intuitively, which is they pay attention to people's patterns. Like, hey, don't ever try to reach Jeff on a Friday because Jeff always plays golf on Friday. Don't reach out to Jen because Jen has some other conflict on Monday afternoon. She never answers her phone. So I really paid attention to these behavioral patterns. And one day, as kind of like the whole big data craze was coming about, now I had always been in very large data. I just kind of had this feeling of like, why am I spending so much mental energy on this? I'll bet if we analyze just like the metadata in my email, the to, the from, the CC, the timestamps, you could probably build people's patterns around email. And so I started kind of working on a prototype, and as part of that, I outsourced a little bit of engineering. That didn't go so well, but the whole time I was looking for somebody that I could co-found the company with. And all of a sudden it dawned on me like, oh my gosh, I have this amazing, like top 1% developer that's a customer of mine. And I started really reaching out to him and saying, hey, let's go have lunch. I'd love to explore this idea with you. So we were a couple months in of just kind of having conversations. And he's like, okay, you know what? This actually makes sense. So we built a prototype, and I can walk you through kind of like how we got from prototype to first customer to where we are today. But it was really just about scratching my own itch. And as part of building that prototype, that's where the light bulbs went off of, oh my gosh, people do. Like, you can really see people's digital patterns by looking at metadata. And you even have social networking sites doing it, social networking companies doing it today, et cetera.
Interesting. Okay. And I think a lot of people, me included, are going to be really curious about this thing. And maybe Doug and Mike, you can speak to this. How do you go from something like idea to saying, here's a prototype, and then giving you money for this product?
Back in the day, so I started really kind of playing around with this idea back in 2012. Technology is obviously vastly different between 2012 to 2013. The first piece was to just say, okay, is this something that we can actually build? Because it's never been built before. So that was kind of like the first step. And we said, okay, this is something we can build. It's going to have all kinds of scalability problems, et cetera. And I can go through all kinds of challenges we ran into there. But then it was about socializing. I wanted to see my own inbox and see if my hypothesis was correct. But then it was all about, can we actually prove that this data can add value to an organization? So I took the prototype, the sales deck, and I had a gentleman, his name is Craig Abod. He's the CEO of Caresoft, which is probably one of the largest companies in the world that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
I don't even know how much revenue they'll do this year, probably 30 to 40 billion in annual sales. But I went to him and I said, hey, here was my hypothesis. Here's what I came up. Here's, supporting data. Would this be if we could integrate this into your sales process, do you think it would add value? And he said, this is brilliant. Like, we're having all of these problems, Mike, which is customers aren't answering their phones. Customers aren't responding to emails. Even our largest customers, they may take days to respond, which is, you've got, I don't want to call them arrogant, but you've got some arrogant people that think, oh, well, I send an email. I always get a response from Jen. And it's like, yeah, but you might get a response from Jen. You send it to her on Monday. You might get a response from Jen on Friday. What did you just lose? 4 days in your sales process. And what do you want at the end of every quarter? It's 4 more additional selling days. So he aligned with all of the problems and said, you know what? I'm not going to pay you, but go talk to my IT organization and see if they can get you the data you need.
Okay.
They had a custom CRM that they built internally. We started playing around with it. It was truly a nights and weekends project. I had a full-time gig for the better part of a year and a half while we were building this.
Okay.
And so we integrated this data and what we call an individual's profile back into their CRM. And what a sales rep used to do was they would come in the morning and they would say, based on XYZ criteria, these are the 50 people I need to call today. And they would smile and dial throughout the day. Or these are the 20 deals that I need to send follow-up emails on. And they would just write when it was convenient for them and send it when it was convenient for them. And so we took about half of the sales organization, which at the time was around 300 inside sales reps. Now they have over 3,000 inside sales reps. We took half of them, we trained them on how to use the system. And then the other half, we just said, keep doing what you're doing. So it was a true kind of A/B test.
Yeah, A/B testing.
And so we let this run for about 6 months. Obviously, we're continuing to enhance things, make things easier, et cetera. And then we did the back-end analysis. And the CEO said, look, if you can give me a fraction of a percent in connects and email responses, and just a fraction of a percent.
Because they're at such a big scale, like that's massive, right?
Right. Any organization would want a fraction of a percent. Like if I can give you a fraction of a percent on your 401k, you're probably going to be pretty happy without very limited, with doing nothing.
For sure.
So we started analyzing the results and we were like, there's no way this is possible. So their connect rates for reps that were utilizing our system versus not, their connect rates were about 27 to 29% higher by getting people to answer their phones.
Okay.
Let's look at this from a different metric, which is what is the length of the conversation when you connect at a personalized time based off of the historical interactions. Hey, I called somebody and they answered their phone. I got lucky.
Yeah.
The talk time was on average 38% longer if you used our system, which were all indicated. And the CEO's like, dude, let's figure out pricing, whatever you want to do.
Very cool.
So that was in 2013.
Okay.
That was around the September timeframe September of 2000. We closed the deal in October of 2013. I quit my job in November of 2013. So they became our first customer. Fast forward 12 years later, now they have 3,000 sales reps that use our product every single day.
Wow.
So just the power and the stickiness of it has been tremendous. So that's kind of where we got our start. Now, we thought we were going to be the next, billionaires, but then that's where that's where all the roadblocks started popping up all over the place. And so that was kind of the starting.
That's nuts. And as you know, I think people know this intuitively. Like you get an email or a phone call at certain times of day. Like on a Friday afternoon, no one wants to talk about business or something like that. I've noticed that Tuesday days are a good day to send out emails for my particular business. I have a really small email list. Anybody, like any one of you can probably answer this, but like what is so important about sending a person the right message at the right time? How important is that? And how do you do that without a system like 7th Sense? How are you all in your own respective business like deciding when to send out emails to people? And what kind of data do you look at to even do that?
That would be hard because we all use 7th Sense.
Okay.
So what, more like to answer the question, Brian, like one-to-one email, you can rely on intuition.
Okay.
If you're working on an opportunity, you're also going to run into that same situation of I talked about where, I'm working an opportunity with Jen. I sent her an email on Monday afternoon because it's convenient for me. And Jen really spends quality time in her inbox on Friday afternoons. And then she finally says, oh, there's an email from Mike. I need to respond to Mike. But again, what I've just done is I've extended my sales cycle by about 4 days. Whereas if I would have sent her an email on Monday that I had a higher likelihood of her responding, I got a reply the same day. And that's why they always say, like, have you ever noticed, like, when you send an email, you either get an immediate response or no response at all. And per your other comment around, like, Friday afternoons, you feel like maybe that's not the correct time for your audience. I will tell you, anybody that's listening to this that wants to talk, call me on a Friday afternoon. Anybody that wants an email response, email me either super late at night, or email me on Friday afternoons because that's when I clear out my inbox. I like my inbox to go zero by Friday when I shut my laptop and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go have dinner with the family. I'll do some work over the weekend, but weekends are more of like just kind of stay away from the day-to-day operations and really do some deep thinking and more strategic work for the business. So it's all dependent on the individual. Then you start thinking about things like time zones.
Yep.
And even if you have a very localized audience, we see this all the time. People engage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You might have, nurses that are on your list that like to listen to your podcast. They work in the middle of the night.
Yep.
So they're never engaging with your emails. Ever since COVID, people have moved all over the world. I like to say there's no silver bullets.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I've kind of just been experimenting with my fairly small list. It's less than 10,000 people on the list that we send emails out to. Now, I'm actually on Educative's emailing list. And Boris, I know you are one of the people behind this. You send an enormous volume of emails, right? Like there's 3 million developers or something like that on your list. Exactly. What's like the hardest part of getting that right? Do you ever freak out before you hit that button to send?
So the funny thing is that you mentioned, I heard, like, whenever people say, hey, I think like Wednesday at 1:00 is the best time to send an email, it's kind of funny to me because it's not true. And especially if you have a large list, because as Mike mentioned, there are time zones, there are different behavioral patterns. What if, some folks are just taking a few days off or they're on vacation and just stop checking their inbox and they come back. So like, how do you identify, it's nearly impossible to figure out which day of the week or time is the best. So when dealing with the large list, like Educative, over 3 million contacts, you're receiving our emails. To answer your question, I don't really freak out because thankfully we use 7 cents, which is optimizing our send time, sending emails at the most optimal time. And the reason, because if something goes wrong, the email isn't blasted to everybody. We set different time windows, 1 or 2 or 3 days. And within those days, we can even tweak the subject line or the content depending on performance.
Okay.
Helping us to maneuver depending on the data, real live data that we're receiving back from HubSpot, because we're using HubSpot as our CRM. Honestly, just kind of looking back, I joined Educative 2.5 years ago. And again, that was my first time kind of managing. And honestly, there is no way, especially in the age where the SEO, like organic traffic, is down, we can't control that part of marketing. The social media has become its own, where you have to understand the patterns, the algorithm, how the algorithm works for you to work favorably and whatnot. The email still remains that tool that allows you to reach folks at the time you're actually wanting them to see that email. But still, there's some additional filters from Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, whatnot. They're making this game even more difficult because, again, the entry barrier is pretty low because anyone can go buy a list.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Yep.
So as a marketer, I hate those obstacles, but as a user, I love it because I'm being protected by these bigger guys, again, Google and other companies. Because if that wouldn't happen, I would just get blasted 200 emails per hour. Or
oh yeah, I've gone through and cleaned out my inbox recently, which kind of leads me to I'm curious, all you are here, what I consider experts on this. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see people make when they're doing email marketing?
I'd like to a little bit of that and say that I work with a lot of companies around their email strategy, and they just don't know. It's a technology question, but it's also a content question. And the content is where I think a lot of people are unsure of what to say. They may fall back. I see a lot of people falling back into, hey, we went to a webinar, or we went to an event, or we launched a new product. And that's not helping you. I preach a concept that actually wasn't really created by me at all, but as this guy who was also a HubSpot agency back in the day early on, a fellow by the name Marcus Sheridan. And he was he had this whole concept of they ask, you answer. And it's a really powerful, simple message that I try to convey to our clients, is that you have this wealth of content that occurs during sales conversations. And if you can capture that and turn that into what you're emailing about, the questions that you're getting, you're going to get people's attention. Because if they're being asked in real time, you can answer those questions in your emails and anticipate those questions. And I really ask people to lean into that as a strategy, because you're helping people, you're not selling. and you already know what the questions are. You've already got it at your fingertips. So, back in the day, we used to try and get all the salespeople together and talk and write down subject, like all the questions and then build that content. But today with AI, you can get all those people on the call like we are now, synthesize that data with AI and turn it into email content. So it's even easier now to get it out and do it more efficiently. And I think that that's been something that I feel like is where I see people not having that. You just plant the thought in their head and give them these steps and they can execute it.
I've learned a lot. I've done like 700 phone calls with people over the last few years, like 700 phone calls are just callers from the show. No intention of doing sales, but it's taught me so much. And honestly, that has informed a lot of what I've written because it's been a long time since I've been a beginner developer, honestly. But those conversations have helped me understand some of the pain points of the people that are probably listening to this right now. You mentioned AI. I got to always bring it up on these shows. And I'm especially curious, Mike, or actually anybody, but especially maybe Mike, because you built this app. How did you use AI to build this? And how is AI integrated into Seventh Sense?
Yeah, so we did not use any AI coding tools to build things. But our best friend in today's world. Yeah. But yes, we do employ AI. We built our own models within the system. So we initially started off with just purely a statistical model. AI has so many broad terms today. It started off as one piece of the product, just purely the send time, started off as a statistical model. And then when we started getting into things like, hey, what is Brian's probability of engaging versus Boris versus Doug's probability of engaging in this specific email? That's when we built a really deep machine learning model. Okay. And then we just continue to enhance those, all day, every day. As far as our development process is concerned, maybe about a year and a half ago, we started kind of playing around with Cursor. And today, I don't want to give away too much. Well, I'm happy to give it away because we've built an internal tool that utilizes Claude. It will go through our entire software lifecycle development process, both documentation. It will build tests. Whoa. So we're actually thinking about spinning it off as a separate because it's just unbelievably powerful. So yes, we are leaning into AI very, very, very heavily.
This sounds really interesting.
I would encourage you to have my co-founder on because he'd love to chat about it. He's an AI
speak about that. Guru. Okay, cool. It sounds like you guys are using, I don't want to say real AI. I mean, I've worked for a couple companies that essentially, were wrappers around OpenAI. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. I think you can make great products by doing that. But it sounds like you were actually deploying your own models out to the cloud and using those like proprietary models, which is super cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly. We don't rely on any external models.
Whoa.
And it's actually interesting. Some of the larger enterprises that we talk to and that are customers, they actually wouldn't be allowed to do business with us if we used some of the larger language models.
Yep.
If we were a wrapper sitting on top, purely because of the training models and, who knows what OpenAI,
what they're going to do with that stuff,
what they're going to do with it. It's going to be very hard if you go and you build a wrapper around something, and then customers like, oh, well, you got to build your own LLM. And it's like, well, whoa.
Yeah.
This has been invested in building this stuff.
We're not going to build it in a couple of weeks or a couple of years. Right. We're kind of screwed at that point. That makes a ton of sense. I think that's also interesting for a lot of people that are considering building companies that are kind of wrappers around these tools, that all sorts of compliance issues can likely crop up, and you may be excluded from working with really large companies that have a lot more compliance and things like that they need to satisfy. I want to get more into the marketing side too, because this is something that I know that a lot of people are just aren't used to this idea. They think, okay, I want to start a business. I might need to get a list of people. I know I need to write about them about something. But Boris, you do this as your bread and butter. If you had to go back and talk to yourself and tell yourself something to do differently, or something you would tell people that are new to email marketing to do, what's a piece of advice you'd give them for how to write compelling emails or just not to screw up email?
Yeah, I actually wanted to add back to your question around the most common mistakes. From a technical perspective, the worst thing you can ever do is just start, register, say, your Google Workplace and just go buy a list somewhere or just download it elsewhere and start blasting them with the email. So Gmail, just going back to the previous point that the companies are now trying to protect the recipients, the inboxes from being bombarded by hundreds of emails a day. They have learned all these patterns. So if you're just going to blast a huge list of recipients with irrelevant emails or the emails that they're not even connected to them, I'm not even talking about receiving the prior consent. So that's number one issue. Don't ever do that. Second one is the technical policies on how you warm up your IP reputation or domain reputation, or whether you actually have to purchase a dedicated IP address, because all these technical parts are really important, especially at the beginning, because there's the warm up process. You have to build this. The thing is, you don't know how it actually works under the hood, but what I can say as a marketer, what I can assume is that there's some sort of score attached to every single business or business domain. And then you have to build that score up before you actually start getting some engagement back. Just as an example with Educative, to be honest with you, I don't think you're receiving emails every single day because of 7 cents, because the smart distribution of emails. But just as an example, we have this Wednesday email product update sent to basically entire list. And Gmail knows that that's our best performing day. That's the largest volume of the email that we're sending through HubSpot. However, we tried to send it on a different day, just completely crashed, like the worst performance for that type of email ever.
Oh, whoa.
What it means, I tried to dig into that. And what it means is Gmail just already knows that we're that's not our typical behavior, right? Because we taught Gmail that's what we do on a weekly basis. Now we kind of went off regular cadence, and now we're starting doing it differently. So, and they start to suppress that, because what
Interesting.
We're spamming them, right?
Yeah.
So many of this technical stuff that you at least learn the basics and start emailing the list with some type of strategy. I'm not even talking about basic stuff like segmentation and things like that.
Okay.
For your listeners, especially if they're starting their own.
That's something I didn't even think about. I didn't even think that they would track my behavior as a sender and realize my biggest day is Saturday typically. I had never even thought that maybe if I had things that were out of that norm, they might actually suppress it. Now, both you and Doug use 7th. I'm curious, what has been a takeaway or something interesting that you've seen from using the product?
Well, helping my sender score go up. Imagine if I have a list and I'm sending an email to a company. I happen to have 20 people on that list and they all hit that server. You're going to get flagged. So, 7 Cents can kind of recognize that, the people at the other end might open it at different times and it would stagnate that send, and you wouldn't be exposed in that regard. So it's incredibly helpful in that respect, so that you're not it'll take care of some of these things for you behind the scenes.
Oh, that is cool. So it just integrates and kind of just decides in quotes, like, here's how we're going to do this to give you the best possible outreach for your emails. Yeah. Oh, that's super cool. And you don't really have to think about it, right? I'm assuming you just kind of done.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like that list. And so, there's some other things I'll add to, like, when you should do some basics is think about, like, when you send an email, make sure it's from a person. Don't send at info at your company or something like that. Have it like it looks better. Try some personalization tools in your email. That helps. First names are like company name within the body of the email, as well as the subject line. Think about even adding it into preview text, because that's another way you can do it. You kind of also want to keep images at a minimum, because images can be a red flag and also open differently in all the email clients. Even the number of links that you put in an email, you got to be careful about that, because they'll be recognized as, like, if I have 6 links, it looks like a big sales email.
Yeah.
Very focused, tight email. Maybe it's kind of light and it has one call to action in it. That's going to get a better hit rate, let's say, and accept it, but also you get a better response because you're focusing people on that message.
I'm taking some of this down right now. I think I need to pay attention to this. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
Boris, what about you? Like, any interesting takeaways from, like, specifically using 7 Cents? I'm just curious because I subscribe to those emails, obviously. But anything interesting you've seen from using that product?
I think for marketers, it'll be a great helper when trying to negotiate the strategy with the leadership, because At different companies, the leadership may not necessarily understand all this kind of details about email, the technical parts or best practices, which Doc just covered. And basically, the way it goes is that they have other priorities and they say, oh, let's just send it to everybody. So basically, every single email becomes a priority and has to be sent to everyone. But you kind of skip the step of explaining that optimize it there. So when using 7sense, it's just doing it all automatically. And basically, I kind of have the shield and then say, hey, well, 7sense decided to send it to this specific audience because it was the most optimal decision at that specific time. So that was my main takeaway. But I have become a huge fan of the software because if not, 7sense, the Educative's entire email program wouldn't, to be honest, with the amount of emails that we're sending on a daily basis.
That's there's another cool feature inside the software. You can actually create an email and set a open rate that you want to get for an email. So everywhere from 5%, 10%, 15%. I'll let Mike explain a little bit more the technical aspect of it. Let's say to send an email to a list, I want to ensure that I get a 15% open rate for that email.
Okay.
You can set that within the email that goes out.
Oh, this is really interesting. As I know, and maybe other people, open rate is incredibly important. I mean, for obvious reasons, you want people to read the email, but also I believe, and you would all know this better, if you have a low open rate, that can also hurt like further emails from going out. If you have a really low open rate, you may be marked like a spam or something like that, I assume.
Mike can explain. So you have this one technology within the software that says, okay, we're going to optimize when we send it, but we're also going to look at it, that this email, when you send it, and ensure or try to get to this suggested open rate that you want for that email. There's two aspects of it. Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah, I'm curious, like just how do you, because what I imagine is it gets to the point where it reaches that, then it stops sending the email or something?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
So essentially one of the pieces of the AI that we've trained it to do is say, look at Brian's pattern of engagement, look at Boris's pattern of engagement, look at Doug's pattern of engagement, understand what their pattern of engagement is. The great thing about data is the AI has seen people that looked like Brian before. And then the AI can say, well, I've seen people that look exactly like Brian that have this pattern. What was their probability? Like, at what rate did they engage in the next email that was sent to them? So it is not content-based, it's pattern-based.
Okay.
I've got a target open rate of 20%. It packages everybody at 20% probability or greater together. And it averages those people together, and it says, okay, if I average everybody that has 20% or greater probability of engaging in this email, the average is 27%. So the AI is then going to say, okay, I've got actually 7% that I get to play with. And then what it's going to start doing is to start grabbing people that fall below a 20% probability of engaging. So those people might have a 0.1% probability of engaging to a 19.9% probability of engaging. And it grabs as many of those as it can until the full average of the sending audience is at 20%.
Very
so
smart.
It's doing probabilities, and that's how it determines who the email is going to.
Damn. Yeah, no wonder you got a good product here. Jeez. And I swear to God, this isn't like a commercial. I'm not getting paid at all to do this. I do email marketing. I think it's one of those things that like really no one talks about. And it's really funny because I think most people that want to start a business, they think, oh, obviously you have to have a product, obviously have to get the word out. But then no one really talks about the other part. I'm a pretty small business. I'm not nearly as large as most of your customers, but I know how important it is. That's where most of our money is made, which is usually why you get into a business in the first place. But before I let you guys go, or before I get into some hot takes actually from you guys before we take off, I want to know just this. Like, imagine you're a lowly developer like me, right? And you want to start a business. What is like just some basic advice, especially Mike and Doug, that you would give to somebody who might be from like a coding background or just maybe just not in business that says, I want to like start a business?
So I'll start there. And this is a conversation that I have actually with my older son almost daily. Like he sits there on his phone, he plays video games, boards. Find something that you are absolutely passionate about and go look if there's any products out there that help with this passion. Go try out one of those products, see what you like, see what you don't like, see if you can make it better, and just go build the thing. And you're going to learn a lot about building the thing. And if I was a developer, I still dabble every once in a while. Build something for yourself. And then if you have the passion behind it and it's like, oh, wow, then you can start showing it to people. You can get like real, honest feedback. What I would not start with, unless you've done this multiple times as an entrepreneur, is a pitch deck. We made this same mistake. We could do a whole podcast on Mike pitching the top tier VCs in the world and all of the responses that we got back and the whole fundraising, but again, if you could find something, if you have a pitch deck, you're not going to get real feedback.
Yeah.
When you start getting real feedback, when you have something that you can actually hand to somebody and you come back a couple weeks later and you say, hey, what'd you think? And if their response is, oh, I haven't logged in, I haven't looked at it. Oh, I've given it to 20 people and all of them give you that exact same response, you probably don't have a sellable product at that point. You don't even have something that somebody will even experiment with, adopt. That's why when you see products that go viral, it's because they have that viral component to it of like, hey, this either can help me. People buy products for one of three reasons. One, it either makes them money, it saves them money, or it makes them lazier. And when I talk about lazier, that can also mean reduce risk for them. And those are the three reasons why people buy solutions. So long story short, find something that you're absolutely just 100% passionate about, because if you do strike some level of gold, as much as you might read on TechCrunch and all these other places, there is no overnight successes. Yeah. Again, we've been building this business for 13 years, and I'm still waiting for that hockey stick curve of growth. We have responsible growth, and we don't grow at all costs. We decided to bootstrap, self-fund the company. We're 7-figure a year ARR. Awesome. Well, thank you. But it's 13 years of really, really hard work. And if I wasn't so passionate about it and trying to help our customers, I would have given up 5 years ago. I'm giving up part of my life to build this company. So, I don't know, maybe 1 out of a million gets, strikes gold and it goes viral day one, but that usually doesn't last either.
I love everything you said. I think I'm on a much smaller level, but even so, it's like anything that's worth doing, it's usually going to be hard. And it's true. I think a lot now with social media, we reward the people that have these massive successes so quickly. And that's just not the reality for most of us.
Less so from the kernel of the idea and building it from there, but I see a lot of companies just make mistakes by having balkanized tech stack, and they waste a lot of time trying to make things work and talk to one another. When you have your CRM and then your email and your social media and your website, and they're not all interconnected, you're just wasting time. There's solutions out there, I think, that do a lot of that. Obviously, it's HubSpot is one. And there are a lot of different price points that you can do it. But, you save a lot of heartache, I think, when you think about an integrated solution, because you don't want to burn so many cycles and man hours to get, these things to work, because you want to, do the other things that make your business thrive. You shouldn't have to worry about the plumbing working at all. So I would say, think about a coordinated tech stack.
That's actually a really underrated one too. And I bought this business that I currently own, and it was website here, marketing tools here, and it was a custom made site. And it was tough because every time I do marketing stuff, I'd have to code the stuff myself and then make sure the integrations worked and make sure the cloud service provider. It was a nightmare. I switched it all over, and it made my life so much easier. And then I could focus on actually doing the actual business rather than coding, which I do for a living. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, it freed me up a ton. Excellent.
It's not like I think about all the issues that are under the hood around email marketing.
Yeah.
That I don't want to have to worry about. Right. Take that away from me. It's part of my tech stack, because now I need to focus on the content of that email. And nobody's going to help. So that's an example right there.
Too many developers love to tinker around with stuff, but it's not making any money doing that. What were you going to say, Boris?
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, this is a perfect segue to the point I was actually going to make. I do have a little bit of data analytics background, but at the same time, at Educative, I work with a lot of content writers. I read this content and I kind of understand our audience, developer audience. And here's what I would say. Developers tend to be introverted generally, just naturally.
Yes.
And my advice would be to just go out there and try to have conversations with non-tech people. Marketing sort of has become tech industry or tech field on its own, but try to talk to people who are not pure developers. And while talking, you can discover all those niches where you can actually start to apply your skills. Because if you're a beginner at the moment, like what you probably see in front of yourself is, so there are different programming languages. There's Python, there's Go, Rust, whatnot, right? But try to see if there is actually gap to fill out there in the market. Try to learn more about that, or like whatever marketers are actually like in desperate need right now, and try to see if those technologies are applicable to what you might be potentially building, and that can help you kind of choose the direction. And just as Mike pointed out, if that's your passion, just keep doing it, experimenting, and then eventually you'll get to a product that will just be offering that specific solution for, whatever needs and problems exist out there for non-tech people.
I think that's a big one too. We developers just get so caught up in I'm gonna build another tool for developers, and I'm like, there's so much more out there than more developers that need more tools. We already have a lot of tools for ourselves. Excellent points, guys. That was really good.
I'll bring up one other story because this one I think will hopefully resonate. I was talking to a friend of mine's son who's about to graduate from University of Virginia with a computer science degree, and he was telling me how he's just absolutely fascinated with ethics and AI. And I said, do you know how many lawyers live in Northern Virginia and how many I could introduce you to that deal with AI and ethics? They know nothing about technology. Go sit down with one of them, understand what their entire day looks like. Ask them, what do you absolutely hate doing? Go automate that process for them and then iterate from there. You could literally build a product for a very, very niche market that focuses on AI and ethics. And it's a subject that you love, and you get to code and you get to write the code behind it.
I met a dude that did that. He didn't know anything about trucking, and I worked for this guy, actually. He has $1 million business now. He's very successful, and he didn't know anything about trucking. Went to do what you basically said, went to a port of Oakland, California, sat down in the station and learned the ins and outs of this one guy's day and all the things that sucked. And he automated it. And then he built a small yet powerful business. Really cool story. This is exactly what I think more people should listen to. Before we take off, where can people find you all online? I'll have it all in the show notes as well. Where's the best place to reach you?
For me, it's email, obviously. Mike, M-I-K-E, at THE 7th, SEVENTH, sense, SENSE.com. I'm also fairly active on LinkedIn, but those are the two.
Of course, email. That makes total sense.
All right. Email Doug at optimize3.0.com. That's the word optimize, the number 3, the word point, 0, the number 0.com.
I'm glad you said that because that was totally not how I was imagining it.
And for me, it'll be LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. And I'll have all those links in the show notes. Thank you all so much for talking to me today. And really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Enjoyed it. Thanks so much, Brian. And for everybody that listened, thank you as well.
That'll do it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. If you're serious about switching careers and becoming a software developer and building complex software and want to work directly with me and my team, go to Parsity.io. And if you want more information, feel free to schedule a chat by just clicking the link in the show notes. See you next week.